entirely convinced
What
that
decisions?
that's the case.
What decisions?
In terms of who we subsequently voted for to be our prime minister. I mean, this is my perspective, of course, but the length of time that we spent really hashing out who was the better of two evils, for lack of a better term, we still kind of voted the same ways that we've always voted historically.
Tribally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though we've been dealing with this for an entire 2 years, even though we have a larger youth electorate than before, well, at least a larger demographic of young people who've actually voted, we still, the statistics kind of show that it's still been a really kind of tribal divided politics. And well, again, that third party politics is probably never going to work in this country the way that we imagine it.
And there were so many attempts. Well, the COP is an older party, but this year for the elections, you saw that the third force, the actual third force as people jokingly call it,
right,
attempted to offer themselves as the alternative to the two main horses in the race, right? And that didn't work out.
Yeah, but even that was kind of ridiculous. We had individuals from the third force, who said, there's an H there.
Yes.
There are individuals from the third force that, like, literally weeks before the third force was an actual party, had said they would do anything within their power to put the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar back into the seat of power. Right? And then right afterwards, they started so like how... And
after the party was dissolved, they went back to their old places.
Right, they just kind of...
Well, I think we see third party politics in the country so far looking as more opportunism than anything else, right?
Exactly.
Who can have some sort of leverage, or who can really grab onto the coffers and the purse strings and see exactly, what they can gain out of politics in Trinidad and Tobago. So I feel as if we're somewhat jaded in that regard, and with good reason. Our third parties, the offerings that we've had for third parties have been abysmal. And I don't expect that for maybe even a generation to come that we'll see a third party or a third force come back up and really change the way that we view the viability of politics and political parties in Trinidad and Tobago.
Do you believe, however, that we will have another attempt at a third force? Because I'm going to go ahead and make this at the end of this year. I'm going to make a prediction that, like clockwork, the UNC splits into another two parties.
Yeah,
and that's evidenced by the recent, evidenced by the recent internal election.
I wouldn't make a prediction yet. People call me a prophet, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't prophesy yet because take the third force for example. They broke away and they came back. Like I feel as though people always revert to the more comfortable positions, so that even though some of the people who would have went up against the current opposition leader, went up in support of her and was singing her praises right up until the day of election, and then they turned around and went up against and called her she's an incapable leader, she's incompetent or whatever. And I think that they will go back. I think that they will go back in support of her. That wouldn't surprise me at all, because to form a new party, it doesn't have precedent. I don't think they would do that. I don't think they would think that is a wise decision at all.
Well, I think there's a landscape for it. The Congress of the Person, right, has had, as evidenced by the change in name, some difficulties surviving the 2-year-long election fatigue, even within the party itself.
Well, he's recently declared that the COP is no longer a member of the partnership. There's no partnership. Well, we knew that there was no partnership with all certainty, but it was declared.
All certainty.
Yeah, it was declared after the election that the language stopped being People's Partnership; it became the UNC.
Right.
And just this week, now we're hearing that Prakash Sharma, our leader of the COP, has distanced himself from the idea of a partnership because the accord is now exhausted. It's up. So again, but we come back to the idea of the third party politics being one of opportunism. All right. We have functionally a two-party system, and the same people that we've had in the second party position have formed third parties from the NAR to the UNC to the COP. It's the same faces we've seen over and over and over. And yes, there are smaller parties that are trying to assert themselves. We have the MSG, and they have been doing good work in terms of acting as a political pressure group. But we've yet to see themselves organized in a manner that is indicative of a strong oppositional force. And I mean, there's still room for it, but I can't see that happening immediately, not at least for 10 years, 2 election cycles.
I was going to say that if these people who went up against the opposition leader in their internal elections had to break off, it wouldn't be wise to do that now. I feel like the timing for it is usually as we near an election period, and we have the opportunity, we may have the opportunity for that next year, depending on how they appeal for the marginal seats, how that goes through.
Which brings me to a question that a lot of intelligent folks have asked. If the elections as they were conducted were unjust or illegal, why only press for 6 seats? Can anyone attempt to justify that? That's the biggest problem that I've had, right?
I was waiting for the eagle sound. The cricket chirping. I don't know. I don't understand the logic behind it at all. So, yeah.
Right. With that in mind, I mean, we still have the petition is still well into court. There's no conclusion there yet. What do we think is the conclusion? I think there's absolutely no way that they get a by-election around these 6 seats.
Well, people were saying the same thing about the appeal. They didn't think they would have been successful at that stage, and then they were. So, you never know. You may be surprised.
I won't pretend to have the legal education to say that there's a definite outcome to be had there. But we knew that if there was an avenue to be taken, it doesn't matter what that avenue was, to reject the outcome of the election, that it would have been taken. We know that for certain, and that's been their way of dragging things through court and avoiding the results as they have come. So I mean, I can't say that with any authority that the Elections and Boundaries Commission acted in a manner that is lawful. That's why it's at the courts. That's to be determined. But as legal minds have asserted, that the idea that they were being partial to the PNM in their actions, that's nonsense. There's no real basis in that at all.
Right. With that in mind, let's assume that by some stroke of genius, they are granted the opportunity to have a by-election around these 6 seats. Do you think that the votes change? I mean, we've gone through, as you aptly put it, election fatigue. We've been dealing with the concept of elections for such an exorbitantly long period of time that having to go back to the polls, I think, would just frustrate folks.
Exactly. You would definitely see a lower voter turnout than before. As to the results, I'm not sure,
Because it
will definitely depend on how the PNM manages the economy, because that's the main thing right now. How they manage the economy until that time, it will determine how people's opinions of the party.
Right.
But the fatigue is something that will keep people away from the polls, I think.
Right. And I definitely want to get to the recession conversation in just a bit. But there's a name that we haven't, that I want to talk about more, and that's Jack Warner. Spent an exorbitant amount of time in the lead up to elections attempting to vilify, demonize the then Prime Minister Kamal Prasad-Bisesa, thinking that would put at least 2 seats in his basket. That was the prediction at the point in time, at least 2 seats. Yeah, and 2 is enough if they get a deadlock for him to decide who gets to walk away a winner. Didn't turn out like that at all.
No.
Right? He ended up on the night with a bunch of box lunch on a table for him alone to eat. And now he has the unfortunate position of having to genuinely deal with the possibility of extradition and real jail time, and also the fact that going to the courts might leave him broke. All of which I think really funny and ironic. What do we think is Jack Warner's political future now? He said that he stepped down from leadership of the ILP, but that has not silenced folks like Basdio Pandey from being political voices in light of political retirement. Do we think that Jack Warner is still a political voice in this country in the months or years to come?
Well, I think it's undeniable that Jack Warner will always have a voice. He will always be sought out by the media because he's just this caricature of a person. You know, it's really, you can't avoid the fact that Jack Warner is very animated in everything that he's done or has been accused of doing. Allegedly. Yeah, allegedly.
It is alleged.
Yeah, it is alleged. But I also think it's important to note that we do seek out these voices because of the prominence that they have. All right. Yes, because he has had some sort of connection to, again, a powerful political force, and him being his own powerful economic and international force, and now he's bathed in all these allegations. He will always have some sort of voice in media. I don't believe that he will exercise that voice in the same manner as he did with the ILP. But of course, he has ins with everyone. So I believe that there's ways for him to have just a bit of a place in that discussion.
Okay, well then, just before we take a break, quick question. Do we think that the ILP will still be, yes or no? Do we think the ILP will still be relevant in 2020?
No.
Nope.
Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to come right back and have a conversation about the recession announcement. What do we feel? What do we know? What do we think? What does this mean for 2016? You're watching New Talk here on Synergy TV. We'll be back after this.